So, hey, welcome to House Flipping Income Funnel. My name is Michael Green, and I really wanted to just take a second to welcome you to the group and thank you for watching this video. The group that you've joined is all about finding ways to flip houses in an efficient manner and create personal freedom. Now, we do this through systems, we do this through finding ways to find good deals and good contractors in this highly competitive market. So, let's start with just telling you a little bit about who I am. I'm Michael Green. Again, I've flipped a bunch of houses to date, almost 1,000, and I've been doing this business for quite a while. So in the group, I want to share with you some really cool things that I'm doing, and obviously I love getting feedback from other members of the group who are doing really cool things also. That's the power that we have in this group. So just to tell you a little bit about my story, I grew up poor. I'm not your traditional house flipper. I didn't have money. I didn't inherit a bunch of money. I didn't really have any school because I dropped out in the 10th grade and ended up going back and getting a GED, but I wasn't the smartest guy. So I love telling people this mostly because I want people to know that, I'm not some highly educated person who grew up rich. And it's very possible for almost anyone, because sometimes people have limiting beliefs that if you don't have money or education, that house flipping would be out of reach for you. And if you're new to this, then I want you to know that. If you're doing it already, then you probably know it because you're probably not all that smart like me, because most of us aren't all as smart as we think we are. So I also got in trouble as a kid. So didn't have exactly like the perfect upbringing. Grew up in a bad neighborhood, got into trouble like most people in my neighborhood. And it was right around the age of 21 that I turned my life around and decided I wanted to be a productive member of society. And when I did that, I went and got a job, a 9 to 5. And I'm not very proud of that. I did it for a very long time, and I didn't really like it very much. I have to be honest, but it did provide me a really decent life, very, very different than the life I was used to when I grew up. I was able to buy cars and a house and have some things. Now, I was also about 100K in debt, and I was spending more money than I was making. And then something really bad happened to me, and the market crashed. And most of us know about the market crashing in 2009. And what happened when the market crashed? I wasn't in the real estate market, but I kind of was because I was a flooring installer, and a lot of my clients were people who flipped houses and then builders. And, both of those people stopped buying houses in 2009. And the reason why, they're very afraid things started to collapse. So obviously, a lot of things got put on hold. That meant that my income dropped about 30 to 40%. Now, remember, I was already 100K in debt. I was already way out of line, spending more money than I was making. So this was very much a death punch for me. It was something that really put me in a position to not really know what the future held for me. So I got very excited about potentially finding a new way to make money because I kind of survival mode kicked in. I knew I needed something, and I started going to real estate seminars. So if you're clicking this is very similar. We didn't have, it was only 10 years ago, but internet wasn't as big as it is now. So locally, when you heard there was a seminar going on and you wanted to get into something, you would go to it. And after going to a bunch of seminars and really just hearing what a lot of people had to say, I ended up hiring a guru to teach me how to buy discounted houses. Now, this guru wasn't perfect, and what he taught me was very old school, and it didn't work forever, obviously, because it just wasn't the perfect information. But I did start buying discounted houses. He did give me what I needed to get into this business. Now, for the next 7 years, I flipped a ton of houses using these old school techniques, and it worked like magic because the market was so depressed. People were so desperate to sell their properties that they would sell to almost anyone. Didn't really matter how good your process was, how good your presentation was. None of that mattered. If you just showed up and made an offer, you likely would get some deals. And that's kind of how it worked for almost 7 years. And then something happened again, and this is, I won't sound like a victim, but the markets change, stuff happens. You have to know how to really recover. But what we seen was the market went from really crappy and people selling desperately to people not needing to sell anymore because the market was recovering and a lot of their values were going up. And this was just about 2 to 3 years ago in 2014, 15, and 16. So that's when the market was seeing amazing growth. And that growth became a major issue for my business at the time that was doing about 150 houses a year. And the major issue is that we were buying from desperate, motivated sellers. And well, guess what? They weren't really that motivated anymore, and they were definitely not desperate. So that created a problem, because if you're doing 150 houses a year, no one wants to sell as much anymore, then where do you find these houses? This led to my partner, who did this business with me for 7 years and put a lot of the funds up, to losing confidence in me. And he got so upset about the fact that we weren't doing as well as we had been doing for many years before that he decided to break the company up and push me out. So this is probably a low point in my life. This is something that for me felt like a failure. Even though I didn't have tons of control over it, it did feel like a failure. And I was left with a decision. I had to really decide, was I going to go and get a 9 to 5 and leave the house flipping market forever, the industry, and go back to working for someone, doing something that I hated, or was I going to figure this out? Now, figuring it out, however, I didn't where do I even start with that? I certainly knew there must be some people who are still making money in this industry. So I decided that I was going to look locally for people that were doing this. And what I found was that most of the local people were having the exact same problem as me. They couldn't find deals, they couldn't find good contractors, and they were just, the profits had dwindled. And they literally were considering going out of business also, or just barely getting by. So I started to travel to find the answers. And the reason I traveled is because people who were really crushing it in this new market were pretty far and few in between. And I couldn't even find people in the Baltimore area at that time. And I literally located about 5 to 6 people throughout the country that were really doing well and really thriving in this new market. They had figured out the code to really win in this new way of doing business. So I got on the phone, drove them nuts, had lunch with them, was lucky enough that I could spend time with these people and really get to pick their brains. These were not gurus, they weren't coaches. These were guys that were just making money and just had figured out how to solve the problem that everyone else was having. They were the top 5%. Top 5% of people that were doing things differently and getting a different result. So for me, I spent that. I knew that the people were thriving. So I interviewed these people I did that for almost 6 months, and I still do it today because I'm very, very big into constantly sharing with people, getting feedback from them, and having someone else constantly look at my thought process and make sure that it's making sense and it's not getting outdated. Now, the key that I want to share with you, and the big reason that you came here and the information you're looking for, and that I hope to share with you, and it's going to pretty much change your life, is that I found a common denominator between all of these guys that were really crushing it, and it was really a foundation. It was a foundation that really worked very well. And from that foundation, I was able to take these common denominators and create a house flipping funnel. Now, I use this funnel to do all my business right now. And this funnel is the reason that I am part of the 5%, top 5%, not part of the bottom 95% who's struggling to find deals and struggling to find contractors. And, life's very tough, and they're, sitting around, drinking coffee and talking about how the market sucks. And, well, the market's really amazing, but how there's no motivated sellers anymore. Everyone wants too much. Too many people are fighting over houses. Well, all those things are true, but when you're part of the top 10%, you know how to win against those competitors. You know what to do to really be able to still bring enough good, profitable deals and find enough good, profitable, good working, reliable contractors. So I use this funnel today, this house flipping income funnel today, to do 60 houses a year in just 20 hours a week. Now, I will tell you, if you asked me this 3 years ago, could I do something like this? I would 100% told you it was impossible. Because even though we did a lot of houses at my old company, I worked anywhere from 80 to 100 hours a week. And when I was not working, I was thinking about real estate. I was always in a constant place of scarcity. I always was worried, where's my next deal going to come from? I always felt like I couldn't take my eye off the business because I just worried, because the business was so fragile. It was always right on the edge of failing, and it left me not with any real freedom or any happiness. My new business I've created, however, it has room to fail. It has room to grow. It has room for mistakes to be made. It also has room for me to travel almost 20 times a year. Last year, 21 times I traveled, and I ran my business, and it grew from the internet and right with my Mac laptop computer. And as long as you have Wi-Fi, you have no problem running your business when you set proper systems up. And I've been able to create that. And I don't tell you this to brag, but I just tell you to share because I know that this is a different way of thinking, and it's not what we've heard. It's not what the big gurus who want to charge you $40,000 and $50,000 to coach you and give you these old school techniques want you to hear. They want you to think that it's super complex and that it's very hard, and if you don't pay them a bunch of money, that you won't have the answers. So let's get into it. This is the house flipping income funnel, and this is how it works. And this is a very quick overview of it. There's only 5 parts to it, and these 5 parts I take and I repeat them. First of all, I do them in order, and then I repeat them. And I do it in order, then repeat them. And the process is every time I will go through this process from 1 to 5, I create income. And then I just repeat it and do it again. It's like simple. If one thing works, why do something different? So the first step of it is generating leads. And then once you generate leads, you have to analyze houses. And then step 3 is making offers. And step 4 is turning contracts into cash. And then 5 is reinvesting and repeating it. And this is probably one of the trickier parts. So let's break it down in some real fine detail so I can give you what you came here for, some really good stuff. This is also the exact model I'm using in my business today to create the results that I'm creating. This is how I've run. It's my core values. My whole belief systems revolve around using this model. So first step of this model and the first piece is you got to fill the top of the funnel with people. Now, people we want to fill it with are motivated sellers. Now, obviously, the next question would be is where are you finding these motivated sellers? Because I feel like they're not around anymore. So I do find them a lot of the common ways, but I do everything I do very differently so I can take what's always worked and make it work again. So MLS, a lot of people say it's dead. You can't make money there. I can tell you last year I did 16 houses off the MLS, generating about $250,000 to $300,000 in income, and it's not dead. You could run a full-scale flipping business off the MLS. However, the old way of finding deals in the MLS and searching, that is dead. You do have to do it very differently, and there is some specific techniques that will allow you to win and be part of the 5% and not part of the 95% that's losing. You know, we always want to be part of the top echelon. So the second thing is I do mailers to absentee owners, probates, high equity. There's a couple different lists you can buy, but we buy lists from like ListSource and different companies that will sell you a list of motivated sellers, and then we send mailers to them. And there is a very specific way to do that, and I will tell you that mailers today get about half the phone calls as they did 3 years ago. But the key to it is that we have to take half the leads, and we need to double our conversion rate on half of those leads so we can get the same conversion we got before. So it's not really about how much it costs you to generate a lead. It really about more is how much income can you generate on average from a lead. So let's just say 4 years ago, I could send out $2,000 in letters, and that would generate me 20 phone calls. And maybe I was closing 1 in 20, which is a pretty good rate, by the way. And when I closed one deal in 20, I made $30,000. So essentially, I would spend $2,000 and make 30. Now today, it's more like you'll spend $2,000 instead of getting 20 phone calls, you will get 10 phone calls. And it's okay if you know how to take and work the 10 leads that you're getting so diligently, follow up so well, and build rapport at a very high level so that people are willing to do business with you. And now, if you close one deal for $30,000, you still have the same outcome. We just have to do more with less. And that's how you beat your competition. You can't get down. You can't expect the same results that we had when the market was desperate, because it's not anymore. So the key source to all this is that you got to connect with motivated sellers, but we do it through bandit signs, Google PPC, wholesalers, and we have very specific systems on how we win using those techniques in this market right now. So part 2 is we have to analyze houses. Now, this is really an important part because so many people are so loose about how they analyze deals that they think they can go look at a house and be like, I think it's like 215 to 225. Now, that's a pretty decent ballpark, but it is just still a ballpark. And let's pretend you use the 215 as your number, as the ARV, and that's the after repair value, by the way, if you're new and you don't know what that means. It means what the house will sell for once you fix it up and put it back on the market. It's high price. And if you use 215 as that number, because you're like, hey, let me just use the low number. The problem with that is if you use a number that's $10,000 lower, you're going to make an offer that's $10,000 lower. And if you make a low offer in this market that's highly competitive, the result is you will lose every single time. It's very rare that you'll be able to get that really lowball offer through because it's such a competitive market. And we don't want to lose $30,000, $40,000 flip opportunities. We want to make sure we're aggressive about buying them. So the first thing you need to know is how to assess the property value and how to do it accurately and do it in a quick fashion. We don't want to spend weeks doing that. And then the second thing would be we have to understand how do we add up the repair cost, because it's the same thing with the repair cost. If you're again going in and you're kind of getting estimates from contractors, you're doing, let's get 3 estimates. We've all heard that, right? If you're still doing that, that's very old school. It doesn't really work anymore. Mostly because contractors are so busy these days, they won't want to really give you estimates. So how we do it is we create standardized pricing. We specifically know what each job costs. We walk through in about a half hour to 45 minutes. We're able to create our own estimate. And then instead of asking for estimates, we tell people what we pay. Now, think about that. Like Home Depot and Lowe's, that's who I learned it from. They don't ask and get estimates from people. They say, hey, this is what I pay. And they go find people willing to work for that price. And there's plenty of people out there willing to work for the price. It's just very hard if we're getting estimates. And another thing is when we get estimates, it might take you a week to get contractors out there. Do you think a good deal is going to be sitting and waiting for you a week while you get 3 estimates on everything? The answer is no. And it almost always has been no, but it really is a no these days because the market's so good. So we have to have our own ability to really be able to come up with these numbers. So a third thing that really comes from having your ability to do your own numbers is that imagine a contractor, I've had this happen in the past. What if he gives you an estimate for $50K and then you buy the house based on his estimate and then you go to hire him and he's like, yeah, I've looked at it. I don't think I can do it for $50K. And now every other contractor is like, it's $70K. Now all of a sudden you're rehabbing a house, you've made $100,000 to $200,000 investment, and you don't have a contractor to do it for that price. So that's why we understand our pricing. We control that. This is the secret to finding some different people and really understanding. Now, once you're able to add up your repairs and you're able to get your assessment of the value absolutely accurate, you put it into a deal analyzer, which is what we use is called an underwriting criteria, and it tells us exactly what we can pay to win. Because that's what we want. We want to know what is it going to take for us to win and still be profitable. That's the key. We want to be right on that fine line. We don't want to not make money, but we also don't want to try to make so much money that we can never win and we get beat out by all of our competitors. So once you have all that, then the real key is after this is now you got to make offers to people. Now, when you're making offers, back in the day, I can tell you my offer process used to be I'd be on the phone and I'd look at their house and I'd probably tell them something like, hey, you're probably going to be around like 90. Does that work? If they said yes, that's probably somewhere in that ballpark would be good. I'd go see the property. These days, I go see the property most of the time, as long as they don't have anything stopping me from going out and it making any sense, like they owe too much or they just don't have an ability to sell. Maybe the house is too nice because I am looking for houses in bad condition. I'll go see the property and then I take time to build rapport with them, and I use systems that I've created to make people like me. And I want them to like me because I want to really be able to help them sell their house. I want to create a win-win situation. And a big part of why people will like me is because I'm coming from a good place. I'm not looking to steal their house. I'm not looking to make a bunch of money. I'm looking to make a fair return for the investment that I'm making. And that fair return, I show them how I'm making a fair return by presenting to them. So I'll present my offer. I'll show them the comparables. I'll show them my repair budget. And then we take time to explain all of it. And I get them to agree to all the different aspects, like they agree with how much it would sell for. They agree to the fact that these numbers look correct and the work we're doing makes sense. And if I can get them to agree to everything, then often, even if they want it like 200 and I'm only offering like 130, the numbers make sense. They tell the story. And I have the ability then to close the deal. And there's a lot of techniques to closing deals, right? But we don't want to do it like a used car salesperson. We want to just ask for the business in a very nice way because it's logical now. And, and emotionally, they like us because they can tell we've been honest with them, that we've handled this very differently than almost any of our competitors. And that's how you get results when you think about it. If you're coming in like 95% of the people, you're going to get the results that 95% of the people are getting. So you have to start acting like the top 5%. The top 5% take this serious. They know that when you are sitting in a living room with someone or you're trying to buy a property, that a quick phone call is not the way to do it. Now, I want you to keep in mind, if you get a deal, it represents like almost a year's income for some people at 30 to 40K. That's a lot of money. Now, are you taking enough time? Are you making sure that you're respecting this lead and treating it as if it's a $30 to $40,000 opportunity? I can tell you that 95% of the people aren't. So you definitely want to be 5% that are, and you have to have a process for how you do that. So after we get the contracts and we're doing all these, we're generating good motivated sellers, we're analyzing the deals correctly, and then we're making offers at that point. Well, sometimes what's going to happen, and hopefully more often than not, people are going to say yes. And when they say yes, guess what we end up with? We end up with a contract for a house. But we also end up with the time to make a decision. And for me, how I convert contracts into cash is there's really only three categories for me that I really focus on there where all the profits are made. And that's fix and flip, and that's fixing them up and reselling them for a profit, and then wholesaling to other people who want to fix and flip or be landlords, or renting them out and being a landlord myself. So I have to decide what's the highest and best use for the property. And then from there, I figure out how do I make money the easiest with this. Now, I like to do it that way because I don't want to be a one-trick pony. I want to be very balanced because some properties, if they're a little far away from me, might make sense to wholesale to another investor that lives really far away from me. And for them, maybe it's around the corner. For me, it's a 45-minute ride. So if I can get them to pay me $10,000 or $15,000 versus me making 30 and traveling 45 minutes to go see the property, then it makes a lot of sense to wholesale it. But converting contracts into cash is really all about, again, building rapport with a buyer's list, building rapport with the buyers and the sellers, connecting them if you're wholesaling it, or if you're gonna keep it for yourself and rent it or fix it up, then you are the buyer, so no need to find one. Now, if you do want to find a buyer, how we find buyers is we just put our property on the MLS. If it's a private deal, we have the ability to do that. Anyone does have the ability. You just pay a agent willing to just list the property for you for a flat fee of like $399, $499. I've seen it as cheap as like $250, and they essentially do none of the work, but they literally just put your property on the MLS for you. And that works. Or if you're an agent, you can do it yourself. And that's how the best way to build a buyer's list, because if you price your property correctly, your phone will ring off the hook. And every time someone calls and they're interested in the property, you gather their email, you gather their number, you can put it on an Excel sheet, you can put it in a contact management system like ActiveCampaign, anything you want. But what you're doing then is now you're creating a list of people that want to buy properties, and on the MLS it'll grow quickly. Now, if you bought a deal off the MLS, you don't have the ability to put it back on the MLS. So that's when we'll bring in meetup groups, and we'll go to meetup groups. Like if you're local here in Baltimore, then one of the great meetup groups that we'll send stuff on is like the Real Deal Meetup. Then we have the BWI Meetup, the Rehabber Pro. Those groups have really active discussion boards, and the discussion boards are just a bunch of people talking, much like our group. It's just people talking, and it's just where you go. So if you got a good deal, then you can take and put it on those groups, and there'll be a lot of people looking to buy. Those groups work really well. You can also put it on Craigslist wherever you are. Craigslist exists in almost every city, and just let the world know that you have a house to sell. If you don't get any response and nobody wants to buy your house, then it's pretty simple. You just pay too much. And what you'll want to do is find out how much would you be willing to pay so you can go back and renegotiate, because you might need to do that if you pay too much. Now, if you've got a good deal, what'll happen instead is your phone will catch on fire and you will hate all this. You'll go crazy because so many people will be calling you. That happens quite often these days. And it's a good thing when it happens, because it usually means you're going to make some pretty good money, stuff you're going to really do well. But you do need a system for how you do that. Now, this last part, it seems to be the easiest, but really is the hardest. And it's reinvest and repeat the process. You would be surprised how many of the 95% will, work their butts off, find their first deal, and make 10 or 15K, and then take that money and spend it on the things they've always dreamed of spending 10 or 15K on. And I don't blame them. I feel like I've probably done that in my past. Certainly not judging, but I will tell you the lesson I've learned is that you need to reinvest a certain amount. That money is really not yours. It's your business has generated that. And if you want to keep this business going long term, then you really need to make sure you're reinvesting into your market, your marketing, so you can generate new sellers, writing down your process, making sure you're taking notes and improving it for the next time. All those things are really important. So when you make the money, make sure you're reinvesting, make sure you have the ability, you understand your process from start to beginning so that you can go straight back to step one in the funnel, start filling the top of the funnel so that money can come out the bottom of the funnel. And right now at step 5, they see the money coming out the little bag. Well, that's where you are. If you want money to continue to come out of that, you got to fill the top of the funnel, and that's generating. And then you got to keep things flowing through the middle, and that's analyzing deals and making offers. Does that all make sense? So with that, that is the funnel. I hope that you find it very entertaining. For me, it's been life-changing. Once I've created this funnel, I've had the kind of freedom that I could never imagine even just a couple of years ago, because this funnel, when automated, will just create a lot of income for you to do whatever you want in this world, whether it's travel, it's create a legacy. And that is a big part of what we talk about in this group. This group is not for selling. This group is totally for, we're here just to support each other and give value to each other, and for all of us to kind of create this dream of house flipping and doing it in a way where we don't go crazy. So thank you and welcome to the group. I'm really excited to have you in here.